a shitload of intake manifolds. If you're building hot rod engines that are custom, that are not just rebuilds, basic bitch type shit. One reason to have a shitload of intakes laying around is building an engine. You deck the block, you might mill the heads, you might use a different thickness head gasket. The fucking heads might make shit ride different. Hell, even intake manifolds, they can be for the exact same application, but fit just slightly fucking different. The ports can be, some of them can be higher, some of them can be lower, some of them wider, some of them taller, some of them shorter. There's no exact fucking blueprint on this shit. It's all close, but that's why port matching your intake to the heads is always a good idea, but it's not always feasible. So there's a lot of engines get built that don't get the intake port matched to the heads. So you get your new engine built, zero decked, heads milled, thin head gaskets and shit. You got your valves damn near touching your pistons. You got your shit tight. You got your new intake manifold and you go to put it on, motherfucker don't fit. Bolt holes won't line up, or even if they will, you look down inside of it and your fucking ports don't line up with your heads. You know, have a eighth or a quarter inch of head port above your exit port on your intake, be a big fucking dam, or at the top or at the sides. It's better to have the intake hole smaller than the head, if any fucking thing. It's when the intake's bigger than the head, you're gonna have that ledge that's gonna fuck up, it's gonna disrupt the airflow when it's coming through there. So if anything, you want your intake port smaller than your head port, but as close as you can get them, the better. If you got a shitload of intakes laying around, you're building a fucking engine, you're checking your intake fit, and you don't like the way your ports are lining up. They're either too high or too low. You might need a real fat ass fucking gasket or something to make the shit right, or maybe that might not even do it. You might need your fucking intake milled and shit. So if you got a bunch of intakes, you can just try different intakes on it. And many times where one intake won't fit an engine worth of shit, you try another one on it, you shine your flashlight down in there and you're looking at your ports and it look like it's fucking port matched. I've seen it many times. You get a good head that's sized to a certain size, get like a 1206 entry point, and you get an intake that's about that size exit. You get lucky, you get a good transition from your intake to your head. And so you don't want that turbulence, you don't want your intake port bigger than the fucking port on the head. But the more intakes you got to try, the better your chances will be of finding one that fits your combination. If you know what you're trying to build, you know, like these intakes here, you're trying to build a 750, 800, 850 horse big block Chevy. Any one of these will do. So you just try them all until you find the one that's got the best port lineup, port match. And then if you want to port match it even further to perfect it, you have less work to do. You know, if that fucker's off like an eighth of or a quarter of an inch, you might find yourself having to put epoxy in the fucking intake and shit. More work than most people are willing to do. So it's something to think about. People wonder why I have a million fucking intakes laying everywhere. But I built a lot of engines, and you know, when I go to put an intake on, if it don't fit quite right, I like to have a selection of others to try on it, and might just get lucky and one of them be a perfect fucking fit. Here's my big tall deck, bow tie intake. That'll only fit on a 10.2 deck block. That's a damn good piece. You get your YN tunnel rams. Got the BPE. Them motherfuckers. Big as the son of a bitch. And then your big dart here. That dart might be made out of they might have added something to the aluminum, because they always have a different color to them than most aluminum intakes, I've noticed. They're always darker. And here's your classic modified poly strip dominator with the extended dividers and clover leafed and ported and shit. And this thing's, it ain't pretty, but back in them days it wasn't about being pretty, it's about being fucking fast. And this fucking intake works. It's a good piece. And then you got your YN Team G. Stuck the dominator on there, just checking it out. But these are but a few of my, these are all my 9.8 deck intakes. And then that big bow tie there is my 10.2 deck. And there's my crank pulley, Moroso. Little bastard. But yeah, everybody should have a shitload of intake manifolds laying around. It's the same way with the small block Chevys. I got more fucking intakes than I know what to do with, but every time I go to put an engine together, fit an intake up on it, and you know, if I don't like the way it's riding, I might have another one that fits it a little better, because there are variations in these motherfuckers. So collect all these motherfuckers you can if you're into this sort of thing. Better than collecting stamps. It just takes up a hell of a lot more room. But there you go.